So today on the show, I have the amazing Dawn Maslar. Welcome to the Kowalski analysis.
Yay!
So
Thank you
Dawn,
for having me.
yeah, it's awesome. Thank you for jumping on with us. So Dawn and I have known each other for a few years. I was fortunate enough to speak at an event with you, and just after the event is when I saw your TED Talk and was just really amazed by it because it explains so much, and I'm just excited to dive into it. So for anyone that doesn't know who you are, I'm just going to give you a quick intro. So Dawn Maslar is a biologist. She's a researcher and an entrepreneur. She's a 2-time TEDx speaker with 4 million views on how your brain falls in love. She is the author of Men Chase, Women Choose, and the founder of Biggie Bioscience, which is developing the first at-home testosterone test for men. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's start. How did you get into this? You were just like a med student? You were studying biology, or how did you become a love biologist?
Well, I'm actually a biology professor, and I've been teaching for about 14 years. And I started off getting interested because I was attracted to the wrong men. And my first book is really about that. And then after...
Now, which one was that? Was that the Men Chase, Women Choose, or was it the
Broken Picker Fixer?
Oh, the broken, right. I bought that book, actually. I bought that for an ex-girlfriend because I'm like, well, if she picked me, she must have a broken picker.
It's broken. So after that book, I started asking questions about what is really love about? Can we quantify it on a scientific level? So how do the hormones work? How do the neurotransmitters work? And that's what I really wanted to kind of find out. And because most people think love is just an emotion and it's separate from science, and you can't really put the two together. And what I learned was it is science. It's Mother Nature.
Yeah, I love it because I'm pretty outspoken on the whole waiting thing. And I'll be like, break it down. I'm like, look, at our base, men want sex, women want security. And sometimes women get mad at me. And I'm like, look, I'm not saying that women don't like sex. I'm not saying that men don't like security, but at our very core, we're different. And I said, when a woman gives sex, before she gets commitment, she puts herself at a position of disadvantage because you're basically giving the guy a little bit of the, right to walk on you a little bit. You give him a little bit of control over you because I didn't know why until I saw your video, but it makes so much sense because women release oxytocin when they have sex, when they orgasm, but men don't. I always wondered what was wrong with me because I put so much energy into getting a girl, and then we would have sex. And as soon as I ejaculated, I wasn't interested anymore. I was like, what's wrong with me? There's got to be something wrong with me. And it was the fact that I wasn't releasing oxytocin. They were. And they would want to continue to date. Of course, that would cause, hurt feelings and broken relationships or whatever. But I didn't know why until I saw your video. And so women will give me pushback on that, and I'll just send them the link, and I'll be like, nope, biology, sorry.
Yeah, listen to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you first start dating someone, you get all that dopamine. Mm-hmm. And it turns out if you say there's something called the Coolidge effect. Did I talk to you about this yet?
If it was, I don't remember that one. Educate me and anyone listening.
The Coolidge effect is great. It comes from the president, Calvin Coolidge. So the story goes that Calvin Coolidge was visiting a chicken farm. Mm-hmm. And he had his wife with him, and they're walking through the chicken farm, and the wife was up ahead, and she looks over and she sees this rooster, and he's being quite amorous with this hen. And she goes to the attendant, she goes, "Is that rooster like that all the time?" And she goes, and the attendant said, "Yes, ma'am, all day, every day." She goes, "Oh, really? You have to tell President Coolidge that." So he runs back to President Coolidge, and he says, "President Coolidge, your wife wants me to point out this rooster." And he looks over, and the rooster's having his way with this hen. And he goes, "I see, son. Is he like that all the time?" And the attendant says, "Yes, sir, all day, every day." And he goes, "One other question, son. Is it the same old hen every day?"
That's bad.
And then someone says, no, sir, it's a new hen every day. And he says, now run back and tell Mrs. Coolidge that. But it
Wow.
turns out that's called the Coolidge effect. When a man first starts dating a woman, his dopamine goes up
Yeah.
and he gets really excited. But if he's satiated too quickly, it just drops back down. He never really gets to falling in love. He's just up and down for the dopamine. What has to increase is something called vasopressin. And vasopressin increases when he's sexually stimulated, but decreases once he's satiated.
Right. So basically, just to sum up, and I want everybody to go out there and watch this 10 reasons, or I'm sorry, watch how your brain falls in love. Go watch it for yourself. It's 18 minutes. It's gold. But just to sum it up, your grandmother, it started with a conversation with your grandmother, but she was telling you girls have sex with these guys too quick.
Yes.
Right. And then,
Yes.
and then you started studying the brain and found out basically that men and women don't release this bonding hormone at the same time.
Well, it's actually two different mechanisms.
Yeah.
Men fall in love with one mechanism and women fall in love with a different mechanism. So we both start out, it's something in biochemistry, it's called the enzymatic effect. And the enzymatic effect is when hormones and neurotransmitters build up. It's almost like a, what is it called? When the roller coaster, it builds up, builds up, builds up, and then boom, we fall in love.
Mm-hmm.
But it has to get to the point where it builds up. And for men, it's dopamine and vasopressin. And for women, it's dopamine and oxytocin. And oxytocin increases when you have sex, and vasopressin increases when you don't have sex.
See, so basically, to sum it up, wait until you advocate waiting until commitment. Is that correct? Because that's when you say the men release. They release what? Is it
Well,
dopamine or is it?
once a man commits to a woman, his testosterone drops. And when his testosterone drops, that helps because he does still produce oxytocin. So that the testosterone will block the effects of oxytocin. So that can help him create a long-term bond.
Mm. But
So
the idea is to wait until commitment. That was
yeah,
what your studies have basically found is you wait until a man commits. So I think first off, thank you for endorsing my book. If y'all don't know, Dawn was kind enough to endorse Why Waiting Works. But I advocate for waiting until marriage because I don't come at it obviously from a biological standpoint, even though I do think that there's evidence to back that up. I come at it more for I could commit and I could get out of a commitment easily. So I might commit just to get some tail. Like I might tell you I love you. I might even think that I love you. I might even think I mean it when I say it because the Bible says the heart's deceitful above all things. So I might be like, Dawn, I love you. Let's have sex. But if you go, okay, Rob, I love you too. Let's get married real quick. That would change the conversation because I believe that marriage is the ultimate of commitment. So what do you have to say to that? Because couldn't just a commitment be very easy to get out of, like a Facebook status or whatever?
it could, but there's the other thing is I can actually, pretty soon I'll be able to test for it. So that was the beginning of those test strips for testosterone, because I can tell under certain parameters, I can tell based on your testosterone level if you're committed to me or not, or committed to a woman.
Yeah, so that really sucks. So hold on. So you're saying when you commit, a man commits, his testosterone drops.
Under certain parameters. So there's a lot more to it. It's not just, he's not low T all day.
I mean, because wouldn't that affect his desire for wanting to have sex if his testosterone drops?
Desire for wanting to have sex with other women, he gets out of pursuit.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah,
So this little part of his brain is called a pursuit spot, and it actually stays. It's pretty large for a single guy, and then it's increased with testosterone. But when it's testosterone, it'll go. It fluctuates during the day. So if I can tell when your fluctuation is, that lower fluctuation causes that pursuit spot to actually shrink. So you lose your desire to chase after other women. So you can get up in the morning, you're fully full of fried testosterone, you go to work, right about 5 o'clock, you start dying. You want to just go home.
Yeah. Wow. So I've had girlfriends and we've always had sex quickly, like real quick, like first date quick. And I would always be looking over my shoulder at other girls, wondering if I could be happy. Sometimes I would cheat. I mean, obviously I've been waiting a long time, so this hasn't, this hasn't been any recent, but and I just wasn't sure if I was the kind of guy that could be a one-woman man, or maybe I even thought like maybe human beings aren't supposed to be monogamous. Or I had all these crazy thoughts. So, and when, I want to think about how to phrase this, because on some level, a woman has, this is what I tell women, they get mad. They're like, you're putting all the responsibility on women. But on some level, a woman can't complain about a man that she had sex with quickly if he steps out on her, because she didn't make him wait. Now, I'm not saying that the guys should not be trying to get it as quickly, that we should be treating our women better and all that. I'm not disagreeing, but on some level, because I know there's a lot of women in the Why Waiting Works community, it's like probably 90% women. On some level, you have to just start looking and taking control of the only thing you can take control of over, and that's your own actions. You can't just cry victim and just be like, well, I wish men would start doing this. Okay, I wish they would too. But you just have to start controlling your own actions and not let them hit so quickly. I actually said that at Stefan Labossier's event. They're like, well, why do men go out? Why do they cheat? And I'm like, y'all let them hit too quick. And they got mad. A couple of them got mad at me for saying it. I'm like, but it's true. And it's actually biology from what you're saying.
Well, yeah, it's a real advantage for a man to get to have sex with a woman as quickly as possible. So this is a bad scenario, but let's just run it out. So if a man gets to have a woman to have sex, and he doesn't fall in love, he's not committed yet, she's going to bond to him. Now he has the opportunity. He's going to call her up at like 10 o'clock at night and go, hey, baby, can I come over? And she knows that she shouldn't let him, but because of her high oxytocin to him, she's going to be like, okay. And then if he doesn't call, she's going to be like hanging outside of his bedroom window, knocking on his trash cans, trying to figure out what's going on because it's oxytocin on the brain now. Now she's bonded.
Yes. That was reason number 4 I made a video on YouTube called 10 Reasons Not to Have Sex Before Marriage. And reason number 4 was the transfer of control. A woman, 99.9% of the time, y'all control the sex when we have sex for the first time. Men are going to take it as fast as you'll give it to us. So, but what happens is when you give the man the sex, now he gets the control because he's in control of the security and he hasn't given it to you yet. So now you're chasing him around trying to get the commitment, which may or may not come. The guy possibly is dragging his feet, wasting maybe the best years of your life, and making it harder for you to go out and find somebody that will commit if he decides to hit the road later, because now he just wasted your time and you're older, which means your dating pool has shrank a little bit. Again, people get mad at me when I say that, but this is just real. My dating pool's shrinking. So, okay. So how has knowing this for you personally, how has knowing this, like all the biology behind it, changed dating for you?
Well, when I first started research, I've been in the same relationship the whole time. So it hasn't really changed my dating because I didn't really date. So I started researching this. I've been in my relationship for about 13 years. So I started researching it probably 10 years ago.
And how long did you make him wait?
Till I committed.
Until he committed?
Yep.
Okay, good. So I'm assuming you're in love with this guy. You've been together for what, 13 years, you said?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I got a couple questions from people that are actually that were in the group. One person asked, how do you factor in the variable of happiness in regard to falling in love? This is what, and then she goes on to say the Air Force study underlined that there was not a difference between commitment married versus commitment unmarried in the study. What do you think about throwing another subjective variable of happiness within the relationship, since there are men who commit because it is the next step and men who commit because they feel in love?
Okay. So I wrote, that book. I wrote a whole book on it, but in a nutshell, there's actually several phases. So the first phase is attraction, has nothing to do with love, and that's the sexual attraction. The second phase is when you're falling in love. That's the dance where you're building up the neurotransmitters to fall in love. The third phase is when you actually fall in love. When you fall in love, we see a deactivation of parts of the brain. We see a drop in serotonin level. All kinds of crazy stuff happens. That lasts roughly about 2 years. And that's one of the reasons why there's a high divorce rate around 2 years mark. If you can make it past the 2 years, then you go into long-term love. Now, all of these are completely different than happiness. Because happiness is really an internal mechanism, and it has nothing that, as you get older, you realize it doesn't have that much to do with the outside circumstances. It's more about your internal. You can have everything in the world and still pick out the bad part. That one little. It's this gorgeous new house, but I got a smudge on the wall. It's like I can focus on the negative.
Amen. Yeah, you see it on the True Hollywood Stories back in the day. The richest, most famous people in the world would be miserable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's not a real. There's what it turns out for long-term love, which is the fourth stage. That's after like the 2 years of the craziness. The people that tend to focus on the good qualities of the other person tend to be the happiest. The ones that focus on the negative are the ones that are heading towards either a bad relationship or divorce. I forgot what the Gottman Institute called them, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, which was like the negative thinking, the criticisms. There's a couple more, but it basically boils down to focusing on the negative. And if you can focus on the positive, then you're going to more likely stay happy.
Yeah, that's good. And I think honestly, I think my mind tends to go toward the negative naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And something that I do to combat it is I make a gratitude list. So like pretty regularly, I'll write down in the morning. I did it this morning, 10 things that I'm grateful for. And it forces me to start looking for things to be positive about. And it's weird because like I'll go through I try not to do the same things every day. So as I go through it and I start writing the things down, I'm trying to think of things to be grateful for, and eventually I'll get it done. But then throughout the day, I'll see things that I didn't think of, and I'll go, oh yeah, I am grateful for that. And that's how it starts to rewire your brain, because now you start looking for things to be grateful for. So it's really good practice. If anybody out there struggles with that negative thinking, is try a gratitude list. It'll snap you out of depression too pretty quickly. So, okay, let me ask you this. What advice do you give to like younger people versus older people? So like if somebody's been divorced or widowed, is it the same advice for a young person as it is for an older person, or is there any differences in what you tell them?
Well, for the phases aren't any different, but one of the things that we noticed is that there's a part of the brain called the amygdala. And the amygdala is the part of the brain that sounds the alarm. Now that goes asleep when you first fall in love. That's one of the reasons why you can't see anything wrong with the other person, even though your friends are going, dude, don't go with that person. And you're like, but he's wonderful. Look, he'll get a job eventually.
You can find a bloody axe in his closet. You'll be like, oh no, it's okay.
Yeah. He's a deer hunter. It's not a big deal, It's like, yeah, he's helping Mother Nature. He's really a great guy. So that the amygdala will fall asleep. That's one of the reasons why women love to jump into relationship after relationship, is because it puts that sleep and it decreases the anxiety. Particularly women with trauma, have a bigger amygdala. So it makes it more difficult to get into a relationship. And men too, the same thing. The more trauma you have in your background, the harder it is to trust and to get into a relationship. That tends to be, it doesn't really have a factor in age oftentimes, because, you can have a trauma when you're a kid, but if you've had as you get older, you tend to have more traumas anyway. Bad relationships, divorces, those type of things, which can make it more difficult to fall back in love or trust someone again.
Yeah. No, that's so good. So there's a study, actually, I referenced it in the book, where it talks about women with more than 10 sex partners, they have the highest divorce rates. And I always thought that the reason for that was, I believed it was oxytocin, because for the most part, the video and the book is super practical, but I do reference the Bible quite a bit in it. And there's a verse that talks about how anyone that sins sexually sins against their own body. It says all other sins a person commits are outside the body. It says, but a person that sins sexually sins against their own body. And my belief always was that sex was this connection mechanism. You bond to somebody. It says the two become one flesh. And then if you pull away, and you start doing that too many times, eventually you don't bond that well anymore. So is that with this, I don't even remember how to pronounce that. Is it
the amygdala?
Amygdala. Yes. Is that?
It can prevent you from bonding.
Yes. So okay. And I thought it was the oxytocin, to be honest, but it's this other part of the brain.
Basically the oxytocin doesn't work anymore because your amygdala is too big. It's sounding the alarm and it won't allow the oxytocin to take effect.
Yeah.
So it ends up, it's kind of weird. For some reason, it has like the reversed effect. Instead of helping you to fall in love and bond, it creates more anxiety.
Wow. Yeah. And honestly, this is something else I've said in the book, is that as much as we want sex, as good as sex feels, I think what we want even more than sex is to connect with people on a deep level. And if you fuck that up, whatever that connection mechanism is, and you're not able to connect with somebody on a deep level, that's going to be really painful for you,
Love sex any day.
Yeah.
There is no comparison. Sex is easy. Sex is dime a dozen, but love is rare. So why would you settle for hot dogs when you can have filet mignon?
Love it. So let me ask you this. Let's go back to it's not a debate, but a difference in opinion where the commitment versus marriage. If marriage is the ultimate form of commitment, why wouldn't you just go to that length and say you should wait for a man to marry you before having sex with him? Because can't we get out of a commitment pretty easily?
Well, yes and no. If it's an honest commitment, it has a biological effect on men. So you may think, oh, I'm just going to say I'm committed.
But how do you know if it's honest? How do you know if it's honest? How do you know he just doesn't want some tail?
Well, and I do know I can test you.
Well, you can test. Look, but not all these women out there are going to have these testosterone tests laying around. We can't even test for coronavirus, much less whether man's going to be faithful.
Well, hopefully one day we'll have those tests laying around and we can test you. But it does have an effect. So you may screw yourself up. You may be going, oh yeah, baby, I'm committing to you. I've committed. But if you actually think about it as a commitment, it's going to change your biochemistry. So you could end up falling in love. So I think it's how in tune you are to yourself, but I think a woman knows if a man is if he's really committed or not.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that they know. I think if a man says, be my girlfriend, or, changes their Facebook status, that might be enough for somebody, but it's such a flimsy commitment. Cause like when I see, I'll see people, men and women distraught. Oh my God, I can't believe they cheated on me. And they're all boo-hooing that the person ran out. And I'm like, what did you have? You had nothing. You had like a little tissue piece of paper, a word. That's all that, and then you're shocked that they ran out on you. Like you didn't make them do anything. You didn't make them man up or woman up.
Well, it is, there should be a time factor too. So if he says,
what's the time, how long? Because the average amount of dates that people go on right now is 3.
Right. Yeah. I usually, back in the day, I was saying 90 days.
Yeah, I think Steve Harvey says 6 months, which would be a drastic improvement for most people, obviously. And 90 days would be a drastic improvement. Because I think at that point you start to really weed out, like, not even just for them, but for you. Like, because a lot of times you can meet somebody, and you're just like, ooh, they're good looking. I'd like to, like physically, because we're just all, we're all charged up. And then like you could easily sleep with that person without really seeing who lives inside that tent.
Oh, sure. That's norepinephrine. You want to know something really interesting?
Yeah.
Do you know what norepinephrine mimics? Fear. Fear can make you more sexually attracted to somebody. So think about like the bad boy bikers and all that kind of stuff. You put that fear element, and women are more going to be more sexually attracted to those guys. And men on the same thing. You get that crazy chick, you know, the guys are like, why did she end up being so crazy after we got together? It's like, no, you were attracted to crazy to begin with because of the epinephrine, the sexual attraction. But so that's why you want to take your time to date, get to know them, so you kind of get past that sexual attraction and get to the real person.
Yeah, I once heard that if you want a woman to connect more with you, like if it was like a first date or one of your first dates, don't go to like a romance movie. Go to a horror movie, because when they feel safe with you, there's something they attach more deeply to you. I remember hearing that in college years ago.
Yeah, back in the day, they had something called the Tunnel of Love, where you went in a little boat in a dark tunnel, and they scared you, and you came out the other side, you were in love.
Right. I guess, yeah, I guess there it is. Cause you get closer to that person. So, all right, let me see if I have any other questions here from viewers.
Sorry, my cat is walking into the room.
Let's see here. So this is another question. You said, how do you explain how we fall into lust?
Fall into lust?
Lust. Yeah.
So lust is all about norepinephrine, which is the fight or flight response. So it's part of, it's like Mother Nature's way of, if you're going to die tomorrow, you might as well have sex tonight. It's kind of like the bigger the fear, if the bombs are going off, for some reason you think you'd want to run away, but it causes a sexual attraction. That's what norepinephrine is. And that's that when you walk in the room and you get that buzz and it's like your eyes connect and you get the sweaty palms and everything. That's norepinephrine. Has nothing to do with love. Let me repeat that. Nothing. Just sexual attraction. So and that is temporary. So it's basically to try to get you together, and then you get to learn to know the person. But if you mistake that for love, then you're going to try to re-engage it, and the only way really to do that is drama. So you get in these like crazy relationships. So the classic example is Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee. They met and married within 36 hours. So they met on a Friday, by Monday they were married, and their relationship lasted, I think it was 3 years. In the last 6 months, Tommy Lee was in county jail for domestic violence. Mm. So that's the type of relationship when you mistake that sexual attraction for love.
And what's the antidote to that? Is it just time?
Taking your time. Yeah.
Yeah. And you think
waiting.
There you go. Why waiting works. No. So you think 90 days though is enough?
Well, I mean, I've been in my relationship for 13 years and I'm still learning stuff about him. So is 13 years enough?
Let me ask you this. What if you would have dated this guy, right? Okay. You at some point you realized that you liked him, right? Yeah. Maybe it was when, 3 months into it or whenever you decided that you were going to have sex with him. What if you would have because at this point now it's been 13 years and I'm sure you would probably like to walk down that aisle with this guy, right? Because that would be nice. So why wouldn't it have made more sense to just wait it and made him man up and put a ring on it?
Well, so we talked about past traumas, and one of his issues was he had just ended a pretty traumatic divorce. And he was very apprehensive about getting married ever again.
But this is what I say. Did he wait with that first one? My guess is no. Because my theory with all this is when you don't wait, especially men, again, we don't wait. If a woman was going to give it to us, we're going to take it. We take it and then we drift into relationships with the wrong people because of now, basically, like if you're giving me sex, even if I'm not in love with you, even if I'm dating other people, I know I still want to be free. At some point I start to feel indebted to you because I know that I'm taking the sex and I'd feel like a real shitbag if I went out and started dating somebody else. I'd crush you. So I'm like, just make you my girlfriend or make you my wife because
she also got pregnant.
What? Oh, she got pregnant.
She did.
Yeah, so that complicates things even more. So now he really felt like he couldn't. Probably felt trapped.
Well, she was pregnant when they got married. That's why they got married.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, so
And
go ahead, go with it. I cut you off.
well, well, that was, I mean, that was part of the issue, is that that relationship, and she ended up being, she had mental health issues, she had bipolar and stuff. So his relationship was like kind of crazy. So he was very apprehensive about getting into another. He wanted love. He wanted a relationship. That's our most primitive natural desire. But he also had the fear, as you said, of getting stuck, of the craziness. And then he already had adult children, or at least they were in college. And um, he had to factor in those things. They didn't want him to get into a relationship. So now as you get older, you have blended families, you have all kinds of other issues that come into play.
Yeah. No, I understand. So I'm going to run a couple of my, these are my strong beliefs, things that I say to people, when they ask me questions, and I want to hear from your standpoint, since you are a biologist. I just want to hear your take on it. So my process is this: is if a woman is in a relationship with a man and they're physical and they're not yet married, and maybe the woman's wondering if the love is real, what I say to do is stop having sex, have a conversation with that person, the man or a woman, because I actually did this with my girlfriend. So men too, have a conversation with your partner and say, look, I'm not sure if we're really in love, or I'm not sure if we're built to last, or I think we're in love. I know I love you and I really want to get married to you, but I want to make sure. And and we're going to stop having sex. And if we both become convinced we're in love, let's get married and we'll have all the sex.
Yeah.
And started on our wedding night. But if we're not in love, we're going to stop wasting each other's time. And you cut it off. And what happens is, because you're not getting all these chemicals released, you're able to evaluate and audit the relationship very clearly. And either you get married or that person leaves. But what I tell women, it's scary to do this, but a man that's in love with you is not going to leave because you won't have sex with him. He will be motivated to marry you, because at that point you put it back on him. You can have sex with me anytime you want. You just got to get married to me. So either you're going to find out that he was not really in love, which you just did yourself a big old favor, because you don't want to be with somebody that's not really in love with you. I hope not. Or you get the ring, you get the marriage, which is maybe what you want. If you're sleeping with him, it's probably what you want. Is that true? Because I know for me, if I was in love with a woman and she stopped having sex with me, it would motivate me to marry her if I was in love.
Okay, so my relationship, I said 13 years, we broke up. We stopped having sex. So he came back a little while later, and then he put a ring on it.
Right. Well, okay, so it worked. You just proved my point. Thank you. If any women out there, it works. I did it on my end because I wasn't sure if I was in love. And for me, it was like I was getting my relationship with God right again. And he started telling me stop, basically, that this isn't right. Probably because he knew he wanted me to write a book down the road or whatever. But I just was like, okay, I'm going to try it your way. Cut it off. Clouds parted. We broke up 3 weeks later. And I was like, phew, dodge that one.
Yes.
But yeah. Okay, good. That's awesome.
Important. And I think that's part of what happened with our relationship. We both had the opportunity to get distance enough, because we met shortly after his divorce. I mean, I was like right on the heels of it. And I'm not sure if he felt like he had enough time to evaluate it. So we had a year apart. And when we got back together, I think he realized that he had the opportunity to take the time to, like you said, evaluate it.
Yeah.
And say, "Pooh, I dodged a bullet." Or in my case, he was like, "Oh, maybe I was letting a good one go."
Right. Yeah. He realized what he had.
Right.
So here's another thing. This is something that always happened to me, is I would have sex quickly with these girls, with, whatever girls I was dating. We would drift into a relationship, and then the physical attraction would fade. So I literally would be laying next to this girl. They were beautiful. I'm like 10s, some of them. And I did not want to have sex with them. I just wanted to go to sleep. I was interested in having sex with other girls, but not with them. And I really believe, like, this is women want love. They understand when I talk about waiting a little bit more than men do. Men, what I try to explain to them, I'm like, look, this is how it comes back on you, because you rush into a physical relationship with somebody and then you get attached to them. You get in this complicated thing. And now all of a sudden, because the connection isn't deep, the physical attraction goes away. And now you end up not even having that much sex. Like, and from the studies that I've seen, after year 4 of marriage, 50% of marriages, they don't have sex regularly after year 4, which I believe is the consequence, which I tell men, look, I want to have more sex and I want to have better sex. I'm doing the work on the front end. So is there any biology behind why that physical attraction goes away?
Yes, there's a lot of it.
Yeah.
So when you fall in love, it lasts between around 2 years. So 1 to 3. So by year 4, that makes sense, because now you're like way past that, like where your brain. So when you first fall in love, you've got these parts of your brain that deactivate, where your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that, the thinking part of your brain, so it makes you a little silly, but there's a ventral medial prefrontal cortex, which is the judging part, that all deactivates. So this person, you're like, this is the greatest person in the world. And then when that starts coming, all that stuff starts coming back online. Critical judgment returns. You start noticing things about them you didn't. You're like, wow, they smack their lips when they eat their cereal, and just, stuff like they snore. I never noticed. Ew, just stuff like that starts kicking in, and then you can start fantasizing about what maybe would be different. So and then you have a choice there. You can start fantasizing on, oh, maybe the grass is greener, or you can be grateful, like you said, that gratitude lives. Be grateful for what you have and realize and take a look at that. But what you're doing is you're moving from falling in love to long-term love. In long-term love, and I like that you have the spiritual component to your work, because long-term love actually goes to your prefrontal cortex. It takes up residency next to morals, ethics, brotherly love, compassion. So it's a different type of love, and it actually changes the person.
That's
So if the person doesn't feel that comfortable with themselves to begin with, if they're not the practicing morality, they're going to feel uncomfortable, and they're going to start to maybe want to get out of it. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. Yeah. Cause you hear people say love is a choice. And I do believe it's a choice at some point. Like at first it's not a choice, because if it was just a choice, you could just choose to go love anybody. You're like, okay, I love you. And then you just marry him and make it work. First, it starts out as a feeling, and then it becomes a choice. Is that
after
what
the
you're
2
saying?
years, it becomes a choice. You make an extra decision. You change that thinking to your prefrontal cortex. If you decide to be critical, you're going to fall out of love. It is going to decrease your hormones of attachment.
Okay. That makes sense. All right. So I got a bunch of comments on this post right now. I'm just looking at it. Okay. Can sweaty palms turn to love? Cassie Williams said.
It can turn to love, but that's the first stage. You just don't confuse it with love. So it's basically Mother Nature going, hey, go take a look at that person, see how you get along, but just don't jump into a relationship, because that's going to cause the whole drama thing.
Right. Okay. Did we go over the question about what the difference is in what you tell young people versus old people? Like, so
Yeah.
meaning you did tell me that. So if someone's older, if they've been married,
older people can still have trauma. Now, younger people, they're, it depends on define younger, but when a man is under 25, his brain's not completely gelled yet. It's not, all the connections are not made. So making a true commitment can be difficult for him. Right. So when you're saying, hey, make a commitment, put a ring on it, that's he hasn't matured yet. His prefrontal cortex is not the part that really makes this commitment, this logical thinking is not gelled, is not connected all the way. That's one of the reasons why his insurance is so high for car insurance, is because he doesn't think as well.
Yeah. Oh no, we're definitely animals when we're young. So now I don't know, this may surprise you. A couple that gets married as virgins only has a 6% divorce rate. 94% of them stay married, which is super low. And, you know, again, I always mention divorce feels like death. Everyone that's ever been through a divorce tells me that it's like the worst experience. So you see that super high success rate for people, even when they marry young, they have a very low divorce rate. And people that don't wait, which is pretty much everybody, like 97% of the population doesn't wait till marriage, they have a 50% divorce rate. So, you know, like, how does that factor into what you just said about men not being developed? Because I see the men that marry young as virgins, because I think comparison is the thief of joy. You know, so like, again, that goes back to the women that have 10 or more sex partners. Not only do they have the trauma, but now you're comparing, you know, the guys that you're dating with other guys, and you're comparing sexual experiences too, I'm sure, you know?
Okay, so that part I just told you, where true love, it moves into the housing of commitment, morals, ethics. Oftentimes, those people that get married as virgins, arranged marriages, those have a longer. They do better than people that fall in love. Why is that? It's because they don't necessarily go through the falling in love phase. They go straight to commitment. They make that connection in the front of the brain where love lives, and they go right to long-term love. So the long-term love, and here's the interesting part. When you first fall in love, it does all this crazy stuff to your brain. Your serotonin drops, and that's why people on antidepressants have trouble sometimes falling in love, but they can still make a commitment, but they just, because their serotonin won't drop. But it looks in your brain like, if we take an MRI, it looks like you're doing cocaine. That's what falling in love looks like. But when you're in long-term love, it affects the opioid receptors. It's a calmer love. So it's kind of like falling in love is cocaine, staying in love is heroin. So, but it's a different feeling, and it actually is better for you. You live longer. If you're a man, you live 250 times longer than your single counterpart.
Hold on. How many times longer?
250.
Hold on. How do you live 250 times longer? It doesn't even make sense.
Percent longer. Percent, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Percent
percent.
longer.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so basically, if a single guy lives to be 30, you live to be 75.
Well, it's percent compared to your single counterpart. Yes.
It's two. So it's, you know, it's 250 is two and oh, maybe no. No, it can't be. I don't know. There's no way that
Yeah,
it
percent.
can't be.
And women are 50%.
It can't. 250 would be, so 100% would be, 200% would be double. 250 would be double and a half. So you figure, if I, you know, let's say a single guy lives to be 60, I live to be 150.
Um,
Maybe it's 25%. That sounds more reasonable to me.
no, I have the research. It's actually 250%.
Okay, I want you to fact check that after and send it to me, because I want to see
Okay,
that.
it's at my other house though. I gotta get
That's fine. That's fine. Okay, so like, we have a lot of people out there that are watching, that are going to be waiting. You know, they're already on the, what I call the refrain train. They're not having sex, and they're you know, waiting for a husband, or they're waiting for a wife, and they're doing it what I believe is the right way. So have you seen many success stories with this, with even just waiting the 90 days? Now, do you coach women, or is it just, you do
Yes.
some coaching, right? Okay. And then the book, the Men Chase, Women Choose, or Women Chase, Women, I'm sorry, which order does it
Men
come in?
chase, women choose.
Right. Is that more about making men wait for commitment, or making women wait until the
It
commitment?
basically, it's talking about the science behind it. So I'm just laying out the science, and you make the decision for yourself. But now you understand the ramifications of your decisions.
Yeah.
So if you want to go ahead, it basically is saying waiting for commitment.
Yeah. And have you seen many success stories, like women that maybe weren't waiting for commitment and then they decided to?
Oh
And
yeah, I've got marriages I get a whole bunch of marriages from my coaching clients.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm sure that'll, you know, give everybody a lot of hope out there that is watching.
Yeah, it's great. Unfortunately, they stopped being my coaching clients, but you know.
You know, right. You lose them as a client. It's kind of double-edged sword. You know, this is what I tell women, you know, that, because I think the natural enemy to doing this, to waiting, even to a commitment, even 90 days, is fear. Like, so the first thing that pops in your head is like, if I wait, then I'm never going to keep anybody around, because men don't wait for anything. Nobody waits anymore. No one's going to wait for me. So they think that they can't wait. And then what happens is, a lot of times that fear will cause the thing that they don't want to happen, which is they really want to find love. They want to find somebody, but instead they don't find love. They find sex. And then the guys step out on them and they end up more broken than they were in the first place. And I try to tell women, I'm like, look, if a woman would have told me she was waiting in my former life when I was a scumbag, I would have been like, peace, I'm out. I would have left, right? I wouldn't have waited. I said, but those girls would have done themselves a big favor, because I was a player. I said, if a girl tells me that she's waiting now, it intrigues me, because I've been waiting. So I'm like, really, I'm more interested, because that's what I'm looking for. I don't want a girl that ain't been waiting, because I've been waiting. If a girl tells me that she's not waiting now, I'm like, peace, I'm out, because I don't want a girl that's been sleeping with people while I haven't been, you know? So, you know, I'd like to encourage people that what you're saying is right. It works. I believe that you take it all the way through to marriage, because I do feel like that's the ultimate form of commitment. But I think 90 days, even for a lot of people, is a huge improvement.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
Absolutely. I mean, if you want to wait till marriage, I'm all for it. I mean, it's your decision. I'm basically, my goal is to give you the information so you know what's going on, so you can make the decision for yourself. So, and what the reason I ended up doing the research was because all these people had opinions and ideas, and I wanted to know, what did Mother Nature say? What was happening?
yeah.
So we know now that, like, you know, men go with the dopamine up and down. He's if you want him to fall in love, he's going to put pressure on you for sex. But if you want him to fall in love, he needs to be sexually attracted, but he can't be. I mean, once he's satiated, he's going to be like you did. Well, this was good. What's the next one?
Right. Right. So what was your second TED talk? I know you did the big one, the 4 million plus.
The second one didn't come out that well. I had some audio, or they had audio problem, so it's hard to listen to. But it was about long-term love possible?
And what was that? Can you summarize that for us? Was it anything that you haven't said already?
It was basically what we said already about how love changes.
Mm-hmm.
In long-term love is really about what you focus on. So
And
if you want a happy, healthy relationship, focus on a happy, healthy relationship. Don't focus on the one little piece you don't like. Focus on the 90% you do.
so well, now, how are you studying this in people's brains? Were you like, you weren't like cutting bodies open? How are you finding that you were just testing people that were like at various stages of relationships, or what?
Most of it was going through the research that's already out there.
Mhm.
So I was basically putting all the studies together.
And what really got you on that was you went through a bad breakup, or you were attracted to the wrong kind of men, or what?
Well, the first book I was attracted to was way back in the day. I was attracted to the bad boy.
Right.
So it was like, why was I so attracted to the bad boy? And then I figured it out. I was one of those women that kept confusing sexual attraction with love.
Right.
So I was jumping into these relationships, and I had my second marriage. It was one of those where it was like this sexual attraction. We ended up jumping into a relationship, and then after a while, it was like I shouldn't have married this guy. I realized, later. So, and then I did a couple more relationships, and I realized I was one of those women that had some trauma in my past, and I had to actually do some work on that and to prepare me to get into a healthy relationship.
Yeah. So how do you know when you're ready? How do you know when you're ready to be in a relationship?
Um, when it stops hurting. If it hurts, it's not ready. You're not ready. And it's hard to even tell. You might think you're ready, and then you get into a relationship and you find yourself like pulling back.
Mhm.
And it's not something that just goes smoothly, like sailing down the river. You're going to have some rocky spots, and the one thing I did learn when I learned about long-term love is that it basically, once you get past that falling in love phase, your whole brain comes back. So all those things that have been suppressed, there's a part of your brain that gets suppressed in your not the frontal lobe, the temporal lobe, and those memories that were stored there come back. So now you're in a healthy relationship that you can actually sift through those and get through some of that trauma. But it can be difficult because you've been in this relationship and all of a sudden you start feeling this anxiety and you're not really sure where it's coming from, and it's because it was suppressed during the first couple of years, and when it comes back, that's an issue that you have to deal with
That's good.
as a person.
So what are you working on now with these testosterone tests? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I started the testosterone test mostly for a commitment test, but we turned out, as I did some more research into the business aspect of it, there's a much bigger market for men with low T, that particularly after like this COVID thing. So telehealth, like you can do the testing at your home, and then guys that work out, they want to test their testosterone. If you can test it before and after a workout to see if you're actually, it should go up by 20%. If it drops, that means you're overstretching your muscles and you're overworking out, and you could be causing damage.
So you're not going to develop it anymore for the faithfulness, because wasn't that the original intent?
That was the original one.
Which is amazing to me. That so basically you were gonna come up with, and you have a patent for it, if I remember correctly, where you could, so women would be able to go home and give their man a test and find out if he's faithful or not based on the chemicals flowing through his system. Is that correct?
Yep.
That blows my mind.
And
I would have been so screwed if you would have done that. You would have had, you're gonna have, if you ever came out with that, you're gonna have some men put a hit out on you. They're gonna want to kill you. They're not gonna want that to come out.
I went to California and I did it was like a Shark Tank, but it was called elevator pitch. And when the guy, he said that test is going to cost me $6 million.
Right. Exactly. There's definitely men that don't want that to come out. I guarantee you there's politicians and very powerful people that did not want something like that to come out, which is amazing though. It fascinates me that you could break it down to that level and really tell.
I can't, it's more I can tell if you're still in pursuit.
Well, okay. So they're keeping their options open basically.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, that's damning enough, I guess. All right. Well, I appreciate
going into pursuit. You may have committed at one point and you may now be in pursuit.
So tell everybody the books, how to find you on social media, your website, everything else, because I'm sure there's going to be.
My website's gone. My website got hijacked, so that's not me. My name is not me anymore.
Oh, okay. I thought I was on there earlier today, but I guess somebody else is.
They put it back up to look like me, and then they're holding it for ransom.
Oh, Lord.
I refuse to pay.
Stand your ground.
Exactly.
But you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook.
Yes, on Maslar on Facebook and Instagram, so you can get me that way.
Mm-hmm.
Be my friend.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody go follow ours. And then you got the books out. You got the testosterone test coming when?
We are still in development, so right now it's been stalled because of COVID.
Okay.
So once we can go back to work, we'll see what happens. Okay. But hopefully, we were hoping by the end of the year, so it might be pushed a little bit more.
Okay. You got a date set with this guy yet?
August 1st.
All right. All right. What's his name?
Ed.
Ed, good job. All right. Good job, Ed. All right. Well, it's been great. We've had a lot of good engagement on the post, and I'm going to put it up on all the other platforms, Instagram and YouTube, and I'm sure people will get a lot out of it. So thanks for taking time to join me on this. It was great. Really, every time I talk to you, I just love it. I love learning the biology behind it. I'm like the practical real world experience of why these things don't work. I didn't know the biology, but hearing it from you it's really cool.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And good luck with your book.
Thank you, Dawn. Appreciate it. All right, guys. Thanks, Dawn. See ya.